Hello and welcome to another episode of the podcast. This week my guest is Kevin Macintyre. He's the drummer for the Divorcees. They're an outlaw country music band based out of Moncton, New Brunswick. We talk about growing up in a musical family, being influenced by funk and rock and roll, how he had to change his approach when he got the call to join the Divorcees, since it was a genre that he hadn't played before. He and the guys have been busy during the pandemic, recording and releasing the fifth album called Drop of Blood, which is an amazing album. They've been releasing videos in support of the album and were rewarded with those efforts by being nominated for Video of the Year and Recording of the Year at this year's Music New Brunswick Awards. I don't want to spoil the episode. We do have a great time catching up, and I hope you enjoy my conversation with Kevin Macintyre. So I don't know if you remember us meeting in person. Would have been, 2014 or 15 at the Hullabaloo Festival in Perth Andover.
Yeah.
I was playing with Terry Whalen Band at the time.
Right.
And,
that's right.
You guys were, I forget if it was the Friday or the Saturday night, but you guys were headlining the show.
Yeah, the Saturday night.
Yeah. And I remember we played and we come off the stage and I think it was you and Turtle and I don't know if Alex was there, but hey, you were great set, good playing and stuff. And, most people just kind of say that, but you guys were pretty chill and cool. I appreciated it. It felt genuine. So anyway, I appreciated that.
Well, you're very welcome. And, it's, you got to be genuine in this business. Otherwise you're going to get eaten up quickly, right? People see right through that bullshit. So where credit's due, credit needs to be given. So yeah. Good on you.
Yeah. No, after when you guys were playing your set, I went out to the front, in the crowd and stuff. And you guys have just such a solid pocket groove. And they say you're only as good as the drummer, right? So I attribute that to your laid back, just in the brief time that, that we met and just you here now, you just seem like a real chill dude, just kind of comes from behind the kit and just,
Never really thought about it that way, but yeah, definitely pretty laid back in my life. And yeah, my approach to playing, I guess, is probably mirrored in that, how I'm just kind of rooted in trying to keep things just on an even keel and try to keep things balanced and not try to get too far ahead of things. Right. So
yeah,
it's, you got to think about, the people that influence you as well and your playing styles too. Right. So you have all these different push and pull individuals in the drumming community. You find all these cool little unique things from one player to the next. And I've always been more that feel kind of a player. And those kinds of guys really suck me right in.
Yeah.
Being a technical player, I think it's fantastic. I'm far from technical. I like to groove. I like to feel songs pulse. And that's just where I kind of sit. And playing with Turtle, it was just fantastic.
You guys lock in real good.
Yeah. And it's been like that since day one. We were doing a cover band before I joined the Divorcees, and it was just wedding bliss on night one together.
Kismet, chemistry. It's very important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into the influences and all that in a bit. I don't want to get kind of more into your backstory, kind of timeline wise,
Okay.
So you're not originally from the Moncton area, if I understand correctly.
No, I was born in Montreal. Spent some time, my childhood in Ontario as well, in Cornwall. Then moved out to Moncton in late 80s. I think it was 88. Okay. 11, 12 years old.
Right. So most of your adolescence then.
Yeah, exactly. So, the East Coast, Moncton is definitely home. I'm out in Chediac River now, but went through junior high and high school here in town. And that's really when I started to actually get gigs and start playing. I'd always wanted to play drums, and my parents saw that I had an affinity towards it, but they weren't ready to pull the trigger on drums, right? So I was given drumsticks and spent all my early years just playing on the couch and pillows and mimicking what I'm hearing and seeing in music videos and stuff, right? So
how early of an age were you walking around banging on stuff in the house?
I was 7. My older brother had a great record setup system in his bedroom, and one day he just Kev, come here, I want to show you something. And he put on Zeppelin 1. It was good times, bad times.
Bow, bow. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like,
Hits you right.
that's,
Yeah.
I want that. I need to be able to do that.
Yeah.
And it just started from there. So I went straight to my parents. I was like, I want to play drums. So like I said, they said, well, we'll get you some sticks and you can start, do your rudiments. My father's a musician as well. My whole family is musical. So
Okay. Yeah, I was going to
there
ask
was
about like the genesis, like, you know, the in the blood kind of thing.
yeah, it's part of who we are, at least within, you know, my Macintyre clan, my mom, my dad, my brothers and sisters. So we've all dabbled in it to certain degrees. But yeah, my dad and mom always had music going on the weekends. Father always liked to have the best sound system that was new at the time. And so it was just always around, and there was always guitars and basses and stuff lying around. So.
Okay. So did you pick up any of those as well, or just stuck to drums?
No, I did. So, you know, you can only feel so motivated as an 8, 9, 10-year-old kid when you've been playing on couches all this time and they still haven't pulled the trigger on drums. Right. So I grabbed a guitar and started playing guitar at the same time. So
an actual instrument. Yeah.
So I play guitar, play bass, learn mandolin, got a banjo back there, a little bit of keys, just whatever I can get my hands on. Spent a couple of years in my early 20s working for Moncton Music Center. So being in the music store and just having everything at your fingertips, in between customers, go and grab something different, something new, and give it a shot, see if you can figure it out.
So like Macintyre, that's not a very French name to be from Montreal. Is that where where your mom and dad are from originally, or? Yeah.
So my mother's an Allen. She's born and raised in Montreal. My father is Scottish. He moved to Canada. They immigrated when I think he was around 13, 14 years old.
Okay. So he's native to Scotland.
He's native to Scotland, yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And they moved to Sudbury. My grandfather was working there for a bit, and then eventually he moved to Montreal. He got a job with CN, and then my father, after graduating university, and he met my mom in high school.
Okay.
So they've been together ever since. And my dad got a job in CN, and that's what moved us from the Montreal, Cornwall area to the East Coast. He got transferred up here to Moncton.
So you have at least one brother and sister. How many siblings do you have total?
I have 2 brothers and 1 sister. I have an older brother who's 6 years older than me. My sister's 3 years older than me. And then I have a younger brother who's 3 years younger than me. So we're all 3 years apart.
All right. Okay, right on. And you all play music?
We all do, yeah. My older brother plays a little bit of bass, a little bit of guitar. Tried out the drums a little bit too. My sister, she can hold down a solid beat on the kit, but she was more into the keys and a little bit of bass guitar. My younger brother actually has been involved in the music scene, Canadian music scene, since his early 20s. He had a number of projects when he was living in Ottawa in his early 20s, had a record label with a partner, more electronic style. I don't know all the different names, but EDM style stuff. But they would do like weekly, nightly shows at specific venues, and it was just a big party, and they were doing mashups and stuff like that. And yeah, he's now living in Toronto. He's been in Toronto for close to a decade, I think now, and not as involved in the music thing, but he's still producing music. He's a producer. He works with other artists as well. So. But he's actually got his foot in the door in the film industry in Toronto right now. So, I've kind of taken him and his partner aside, and they're working on some pretty big projects. Yeah,
stuff you can't really talk about.
Right.
No, that's cool.
Yeah. So, and my father, I mean, you know, my dad, again, he probably is the driving force for all of us when it comes to the musical gene that we all have. Again, he always had good music, or at least what I always thought was good music. And it was just a mix of everything, from the Beatles, of course, to the Rolling Stones, to funk. My dad's a big bluegrass fan too. So there's a lot of bluegrass in the house as well. So it's everything. It just courses through us. It's all we talk about. It's all we share when we're together as a family. Oh, have you heard this? And check this out. And
cool. So and a lot of those bands that you mentioned, those are all like feel and groove and serving the song kind of thing. So that makes sense that you would gravitate towards that style of play. It's funny how like the early stuff that you listen to and that you come up with really shapes, you know, the way you play, you know, because I know guys that total metalheads growing up, and that's what they do. So they're like super technical in their playing, be it, drums or guitar or whatever. And then you get the guys like yourself and myself as well, because I'm all about groove. I'm so far from being technical, but it's just what you listen to and the attitude that kind of shapes that into what you then do, not just in playing music, but just in life, and like being laid back and kind of taking everything as it comes versus attacking it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Because I know, like, growing up, my dad, he only started playing music later in his life, probably in his 30s. Picked up an acoustic guitar, and him and his buddies and my mom's family's all musicians. And so then he started wanting to play in a band. So then in their house, in our basement, he'd always have people over on the weekends, just or kitchen parties at the grandparents and that kind of stuff. And then he decided he wanted to play in a country music cover band. So then there was always people in the basement and a drum kit, and people over on the weekends practicing, and him going out and playing the local pubs and stuff until 2 or 3 in the morning or whatever. And so I always was around that kind of style and those types of people. So only naturally would I gravitate towards doing that in my early teens, right?
Exactly.
But the country music that I remember is like George Jones and Buck Owens and like Merle Haggard and those kind of things. Was that also, because like being in the Divorcees, there's a strong influence with those cats. Is that something that you had coming into the band, or is that something that you just sort of adapted from being with the rest of the guys?
Exactly. Yeah, the latter. I had done a couple of country gigs way back early in my career, but nothing that had any life to it. And I was just picking up gigs at the time. I was just trying to play, right? So no, it was only when the possibility was coming towards me playing with the Divorcees, I was like, oh shit, I gotta figure this stuff out. Like,
it's not as easy as it sounds.
It's not.
Yeah.
It sounds so simple and rudimentary, and a lot of it is, but it's that feel thing that you need to be able to get, right?
Yeah.
It's being able to have a shuffle that serves the tune, that just isn't a straight shuffle, right? You got to find where it sits. It's got to swing. Absolutely, it's got to swing. So I had to adapt. I started to listen to all the older stuff and really focus in on the drums, and not pay attention to the harmonies and the cool guitar licks and stuff. It was like, just focus on what they're doing and try to find a feel that you can, bring to the band. Keep it unique though, because they have the Divorcees are so unique in their sound. It's deep, definitely in traditional outlaw country, but there's some quirky influences that come from each member that makes the sound just different. So it was important that I come in and still be me, but get away from the heavy funk feel.
Right.
I'm surprised at how much funk there is in country though. Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
Which is good.
Which is great. So when, like, because I know the Divorcees, they were pretty well established before you had joined, because I know they had Brock was the drummer before. So when did you join the band? Like, what year was that in sort of the timeline?
Yeah, it was in 2013.
Okay.
Is when I first had a couple of gigs and just kind of filling in when Brock couldn't make it. And then it was like, okay, are you able to do it? And let's do it. And I think it was probably towards the end of 2013 that it was like, okay, this is what it's going to be going forward.
Okay. And that into the intro into the band was through you having played with Turtle before? Is that?
Yeah, the initial invitation came from Turtle, because we were doing just some cover gigs with a few different musicians in town. And he said, look, like, there's a couple of openings here that Brock can't do. Would you be able to fill in?
Right.
And I said, sure. Yeah, send me the stuff and I'll learn it. And that's pretty much how it happened. But I've known Alex since the mid 90s. So an old band that I played in called Thunderfunk, based out of Moncton in the mid to late 90s, 96 to 99, I think we were. Alex was in Fredericton playing with Smiley, and we had done a bunch of bills together with them. So I'd known Alex much longer than I had known Turtle. And at the time, Jaybird was in the band. And I didn't know Jaybird either. So it was easy to kind of come in when you know half the guys you're playing with.
Right.
And it was they made it easy on me. I obviously had to put a lot of work in, because you're learning hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes 3 hour sets that the band's getting booked for, right? So it's not only all the original stuff, but it's
the covers and
exactly.
Because you guys wouldn't be, I mean, when you're on a festival stage, it's easy to put a 45-minute to an hour set versus, playing a club and you're like maybe one or two bands. So you've got to fill that whole 4 hour, of music. So that's upwards of 50 songs, somewhere around that. It's a lot of material.
It is.
Yeah.
But again, country, it's once you can kind of find what you need to do in order to make it sound country, it's all pretty straightforward, and you just got to find the pieces and know where things are going to fit.
Because your background, like you say, would have been more, classic rock, funk, that type of stuff. So who were the Bonham, obviously, as you mentioned, that first impression. Who were the three guys that you had when you were first learning the drums that you were kind of geared towards or were looking to for inspiration?
Well, when I was playing on the sofa, my mom was a big Queen fan, so I was playing a lot of Queen on the sofa learning.
So Roger Taylor,
yeah. But when I actually got my first drum kit, I think it was 13 or 14 years old. And that's when everything changed. That's when it's like, okay, I finally got it. And now I can settle in and I can really put the work in and play what I want to play. And at that point in time, it was, Blood, Sugar, Sex, Magic was out. Even Soundgarden. So that grunge era was a big influence on me. But then I was always going back to Bonham, playing as much Bonham as I could. My mom was also a big Rush fan. So there was trying to sit down and trying to do what Neil would do.
Trying to dissect what the doctor had.
Yeah. But then I learned really quickly, like, I don't have the technique and the chops for this stuff. So I would dabble in that, but always find myself sitting back and playing something that just has a nice funk groove or just something that's just going to bounce up and down. But and then some of the heavier players too, right? Like I said, Chad Smith and David Abruzzi's from Pearl Jam. I thought he was a fantastic, tasteful but heavy hitter drummer, but they're all influenced by the same core people, right? That's
the fun part of when you're introed into music, you're within a certain era, and then you dive into those particular players or those bands, and then you find out who they listen to and who they influence them. So you go back a generation and then you do that again, and you just keep going back and back until finally you end up somewhere around the Beatles or Elvis Presley or, that kind of rock. Right.
Yeah.
Which is all, again, just based on feel, because it all comes from, the blues.
And even going back, into the legendary drummers, Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich.
Yeah.
And they all fed into all these other guys like Bonham and everybody, right? So yeah, it's a fun community to be a part of. And I find, we embrace each other so easily. It's like, you and I had an interaction 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
But it's felt like we've known each other for ever. This is an easy conversation, right?
Yeah, right. Well, like you say, as drummers, the community of drummers is very much like that. Like I've yet to meet a drummer that is in competition with other people other than being in competition with themselves.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'll always beat myself up and, I should have done this, or I could, improve on that, or, my double strokes are sloppy, or, whatever, but I would never put that on somebody else. I'm always in awe. And when I see other drummers playing, I'm always thinking, man, I wish I could do that, but then they would probably in turn say the same thing if they're watching me play. It's because we're all different. We all speak the same language, but we do it differently, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly. And to your point, you're always going to pick out something from somebody, and that's cool.
Yeah.
I wish I did that, or I wish, I'm going to learn how to do that.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. I can't think of any live show that I've been to where there's a drummer where I've been like, oof, like that was terrible, or that was an experience that I quickly want to forget. It's never like that. Even if a band is falling apart around them, even if they're falling apart, there's still moments where you're like, that's awesome. That's crazy.
Yeah. And it happens all the way up to the top. Like you see, like you mentioned, Chad Smith, he's playing a drum solo and he's dropped like 3 sticks in the middle of it, but he doesn't give a shit. He just keeps going. And you're never once are you like, oh, wow, that sucks. You're just like, wow, that guy's fucking going for it. You know? Yeah. And he is, and he hits like a motherfucker. Like I've never, like, there's a few guys that hit really hard, and I don't think there's many that can hit as hard as he does. Like if you watch how he's like when he's landing, like I'm surprised the drums hold up until the end of the set.
Yeah, no, he's a heavy hitter, but you know, I got to give that guy a lot of credit too, from a groove perspective. And I mean, that guy, and it's his it's the way in which he plays his hi-hat. He's got this loosey goosey in the pocket, slightly behind the one, kind of like Bonham, but just this overall sense of, I got this groove and I'm going to make it move.
Yeah.
And it's like you said, it can be sloppy, but the sloppiness is what's so good about it.
Yeah. Right. And I think part of his groove is that he hits so hard, because you're feeling that kick drum and the crack that he brings on that snare drum. You're like, you just can't help but feel that trance he puts you in. Right.
Yeah.
He's definitely one of the top guys still doing it. I mean, he's probably close to 60, or at least in his mid 50s. They all are now, I'd say.
Oh yeah.
I'm in my mid 40s. So
exactly. I'm in my mid 40s. So they have to be.
They have to be, right? It's just as we get older, so do they. So yeah. So who are the guys that you kind of listen to now? Like, are there any new up and comers, or just still some of those classic guys that you keep tuning into?
Well, when I was in my mid 20s, my uncle turned me on to Dave Matthews Band. Now, if there's probably a ton of musicians that are going to shit on me, because it's a fun thing to do to shit on Dave Matthews and their fans. But I'm a true hardcore. I've been to 60 shows. Carter Beauford. When I listened to that Crash album for the first time, my mind nearly exploded. And I just obviously the drums is really what pulled me in. I came to appreciate everything else afterwards too, but Carter has been, I want to say he's an influence on me, but it's not an influence where I incorporate his stuff, because he's busy.
Right. Oh yeah. His
constant splashes. Like you look at the drum kit behind me, there's not a single splash on that kit, right?
Yeah.
So
I dropped my splash years ago.
But I love his playing, and I love the stuff that he does. There's some technique things that I've been able to, incorporate into my playing, but definitely the style itself is not something, I'm even going to attempt to try to do, because he's just an absolute monster. So, so I've constantly, been feeding myself Dave for 20 plus years. But, recently I'm really kind of fallen into that midlife older man bluegrass country stuff these days, right? Billy Strings, I'm a big fan of him. Tyler Childers, Sturgill, playing those guys quite a bit. Billy Strings actually just released an album 2 weeks ago, and it's fantastic.
I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, there's so much music out there now. We have the ability to just experience everything from mega acts to small little semi-unknown artists. There's a duo called Low. I don't know if you've heard of them before. I think they're a husband and wife duo, two-piece, and it's kind of droney, lower. It's kind of funny. They're called Low, but they just put an album out too, and sonically it is incredible. And the interesting thing is like the first, I think 7 or 8 tracks, there's not a single drum hit on it at all.
Well, it's a lot of that, like Shovels and Rope, and like those acts where it's, just 2 people. Sometimes there's drums, a lot of times there isn't, but it's that Americana roots kind of stuff that's really in the last probably, I want to say 5 or 6 years, it's kind of become really mainstream.
There seems to be this push away from
Yeah.
the pop country thing. It's definitely a movement. It's on fire. It's pushing right now, which is good.
Yeah.
Hopefully it can sustain itself or even create a new model when it comes to that genre, and even other genres as well.
I think so, because you're getting new acts all the time. Like Coulter Wall's been around for a while.
Yeah.
Tyler Childers.
Yeah.
God, I'm drawing blanks now. Crockett. I can't remember his first name. Like there's a whole bunch of those guys now that are just really taking over that underground roots country that's becoming more and more, because of people like Sturgill and Stapleton that are kind of breaking that mainstream for them to come up.
Yeah.
And I think it's great. I mean, I can't stand that bro country, that pop country. It's just pop music with a banjo or with one country music instrument thrown in the mix, like a steel guitar or something, and call it a country song, right? It's just top 40.
It is. It's music that's manufactured to be put into rotation. It's a pretty dirty, gross thing for sure. That model, that business model, but very proud to see, like you said, these people that really, they're doing it for the music. They're trying to keep things traditional. There has to be a sense of tradition. And so it's coming back. And, I like to think that we're kind of in that space, right?
Absolutely.
So it gives us hope for sure. Now, of course, COVID over the last 18 months has really put, damper on everything. Everything.
Because you guys did Drop of Blood during COVID, right? Like when you recorded it?
Yeah, we did. We recorded it in August last year. Up in Rexton. We rented a cottage. Actually, Jason Haywood, now that he's back in the band, his mother has a beautiful spot up there on the river, and she has a little cottage out back, and we booked it for the week, and we lived in there and tracked and ate food and had some laughs and dealt with technical issues and had more laughs. And but it was just a real time, again, because you're putting all this hard work into a product that you're even questioning, is this the right time to be doing this? And is it even going to do anything when it comes time to actually put it out there? I think it was Alex when it was like, absolutely, people need this stuff. They need new material. We need to do stuff. We need to put this stuff, right?
So you guys were there for a week. Was that a hard deadline, or was that just how long it took you guys? Like, did you guys set aside, okay, this is the time we're doing it, it's all got to fit into that? Or was it, you've got the cottage for how long you need it, and it just, kind of happened that way?
No, it was a firm timeline. We said, this is what we need to do. Basically every day was scheduled out. And the plan was to get it all done in a week. Now, it's not easy to track an 11 track album in a week, right? But we did most of it. We were able to get all the bed tracks for the rhythm sections down. A lot of the rhythm guitar stuff was done there. The vocals were done there. Most of the leads were done there. We just had to do a little bit of stuff at Alex's home studio for a few final things that needed touch. I did some, not much, but a little bit of percussion stuff here as well.
So did you track all your drums first? Like, you do that traditional, all the drums first, and then once that's done, move on to the next? Or were you doing like a song to completion and then song to completion and so on?
No, it was that old school style where drums first. So track the drums. Turtle was in the same room with me. Of course, we'd just like to always keep eye contact. And then Alex or Jason was up doing the vocals and the rhythm just to keep us on track for the song. So it was play your take until you are happy with it. And that's essentially what we did for everything. So we loaded in on a Saturday. I think we got there at 11. We didn't actually hit record until about 6 p.m. that night. And I did 10 of the 11 tracks in that one session. We did up until about 3 a.m. in the morning. And then we
That's a
woke
long
up the
day.
next morning. It was a long day. It was a very long day. And I'm never doing that again. I don't care. I'm never doing that again.
Yeah. Been
A
there,
lot
done
of
that,
work,
man. That's
a lot
rough.
of, yeah, and a lot of pressure too, right? Because you know that you have this set timeline coming up and you don't want to be encroaching on everyone else's work, right? So but we did a lot of pre-pro. We always do before we go into the studio. We really want to maximize our time in there and be as efficient as we possibly can. So everything is pretty much good to go by the time we're walking in there. But
so those songs were all pretty much what they are on the album before you just walked into the studio. Like, was there any rewriting or changing things around structurally, or?
Not really. Caledonia Mountain kind of sprung out of the studio. Sean had the idea. He presented it to us long before we walked in the studio. We liked it. We liked what he had tracked, and we said we'll keep it maybe for an intro to a song or something. And we totally forgot about it. And then we were there, and Sean was like, "So do you guys want to do that intro thingy?" We're like, "Oh, geez, absolutely." Yeah. So we did, and it was just a guitar thing that he had done. So we built that song up there on the spot, but everything else was pretty much good to go. Maybe a couple of small little adjustments here and there, but 98% of the record was set.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's always good to be prepared before you hit record. That's like when we did our album, because we recorded it just the summer before the COVID hit. So I did my drums in August, and I did them over a Saturday evening and then a Sunday morning. Pretty much 1 to 2 takes, keeping the first take usually, second tape just as a precaution for whatever. And then so once we did the drums, that was done. And then Jack and James at the time, they went over to James's place to do all the guitar and bass and vocals and stuff. So my stuff was all done in 2 days. Yeah, we were done before lunch on Sunday, I think. So it was like probably less than a day total, 10 songs. We did actually 12, but we only put 10 on there. But same thing, like COVID hit and like we finished the album. I think James did the last mastering sometime, I think it was the last week of June. And he's like, "We're done. It's ready to go. We should put it out." And we're like, "Well, it's COVID." He's like, "Yeah, let's just put it out." So we just released it digitally like 2 weeks later. So it was like second week of July, we put it out, just because again, like people needed something.
Yeah.
And we'd had those songs for the better part of 2 or 3 years, some of them.
Oh, wow.
So they were pretty much ready to go. And we were like, we've been sitting on them for so long. We can't just wait until things come back to, normal. So just put it out. Why not?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good on you, man. That's it. And people need to hear music. People need to get some kind of pick me up.
Yeah.
And we're lucky to be able to partake in being able to do stuff like that. Right. It's fun. The studio is a blast. And it's fun to get in there and be creative as well. But it's kind of like what you said, like knowing what you need to do when you get in there is really important.
Yeah.
But we woke up the next day thinking we had done everything, and I was going through the songs in my head thinking, is there anything I want to fix or redo? And I was like, holy shit, we didn't do, I can't remember what song it was. And luckily Dwayne hadn't started to tear the mics off the kit.
Yeah, because that would change everything.
Yeah. So strapped back in that morning and bang that one out as quickly as we possibly could. But that would not have been fun if we had tore everything down and then realized afterwards.
Yeah, that would really suck. And I know like you had, you guys recorded a behind the scenes video for it, which is available on YouTube.
Yep.
I've watched it a couple times now. And that was your daughter did all that?
Yeah. So my youngest daughter, Harmony, she's up in Toronto. She's just finishing her 4th year right now at Ryerson, and she's in media production. So this was right up her alley. She had to come home because of COVID.
Right.
And, we were marking the 15-year anniversary of the band. So we decided, why not document it? It'll be fun just and we asked Harmony, and she was totally into it. She knew everybody, so she was comfortable living in that, cabin with 5 other guys.
and her dad.
Yeah, exactly. But she was a good sport about it. And yeah, it was just a good opportunity for her, and it kind of fulfilled a little bit of a thing for us, so that we could again just put a little behind the scene things out for the fans. And
so was that something she would use for her, like for credit for school at all, or was that just a passion thing, just to kind of do it, keep practicing?
No, well, I think she is able to leverage that video as part of her her schoolwork, but it was really just an opportunity for her, and she thought it would be fun, and yeah, so she jumped in, and I think she did a bang up job. She did all the filming, she did all the editing. Yeah,
it's fantastic. Yeah. I'm probably going to have that linked at the end of this video so people can check it out, because I think it's worth watching, because like you guys all have little segments and like little interviews that talk about, you know, the history of the band and then the project, and, you know, being in COVID and the importance of it, and, you know, kind of looking to the future, moving forward after the release of the album, which since it's come out, it's gotten a lot of positive feedback, you know, throughout the country, really. And you guys are nominated. This will come out after the Music New Brunswick Awards are done, but you guys are nominated for Recording of the Year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, we are. Yeah. And the Must Be Nice video, which was also shot and directed by my daughter, is up for Video of the Year.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I was going to ask about, because you guys have put out a few videos in support of the album. I was going to ask if she also had done some of, or if not all of them. Yeah.
No, she just did. She did the Must Be Nice one. I actually did the Drinking in the Afternoon. What are the other singles that we've released? But yeah, I did the other ones, and it's DIY. Like again, this is a full-on COVID album. It's a full-on COVID effort. I have little to no experience in editing, but again, I got my little studio here and was able to. We came up, I think Turtle came up with the idea for Drinking in the Afternoon. He was like, let's put a pitch out and see if we can get people just to, you know, don't go crazy, but show that you're having some drinks in the afternoon. And we put it out there. We got some very interesting videos. Not all of it.
Not all of it could be put in. I bet some pretty sloppy videos.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's funny, when I was just wrapping up editing that video, a thought came across my mind. I was like, we have to be responsible. So I sent the guys a message going, I think we need to put a tagline at the beginning of, you know, drink responsibly, right? We're not trying to encourage,
especially during the pandemic, where, you know, alcoholism and people, you know, being stuck at home, and, you know, mental health and all those issues, you know, you've got nowhere to go. I know the Alcoholics Anonymous, they'd shut down for a while during COVID. And I thought that was, I mean, I get the whole safe health precautions, you know, not spreading, you know, the disease around, but at the same time, it's like those people need the support, you know, like that's a really rough time. I know a couple people that had a really hard time with staying sober during all of it, you know. So, but yeah, good on you for the tag at the start of that, because that could have caused some problems.
Yeah, exactly.
So do you have another video lined up? Because I think you've got 4 videos for the album, if I'm not.
Yeah, we've released 4. We've talked about what the next single is going to be. We started to get some gigs over the last couple of months. So we were gigging and the kind of pushing the album, and our headspace just went more towards, you know, the shows and stuff. So
you also have to get ready. You got to bring the chops back up and be able to play on stage. And, you know, there's a lot of work behind the scenes that people don't see, you know, prior to stepping foot on the stage. Like, doesn't matter how long you've been a band. Like, there's a reason why big touring bands, they show up in the middle of the afternoon, play a whole show to nobody, to then play the whole show in front of everybody, you know? So that's a lot of prep.
It is. It takes a lot of work. But it doesn't feel like work when you're, you know, when you're doing it. And when you're surrounded with great musicians and good people, it makes it fun. And it's work, but it's fun.
Yeah, you're not gonna, you know, you're not rushing to be the first person out of the office, as it were.
Right. Exactly.
So it's quitting time already? Shit. All right. Because that's the other thing. Like, when you're on stage, the nerves and everything come up, and then all of a sudden you're done. You're like, that went by way too fast.
Yeah.
You guys played Harvest, if I'm not mistaken, or you were on one of the Harvest stages?
Yeah, we played the Cat on Saturday night during Harvest.
Good turnout?
Great turnout, yeah. There was an outside event and it started to rain just as we were showing up for our sound check, and they decided they were going to move the outside band up on stage. So like, we're going to have to push your sound check back. So we're like, okay, cool. It was the Brood out of Halifax.
Okay.
They knocked my socks off, and everyone in the room socks off. Unbelievable. Yeah. Super impressed with them. So it was an interesting night. Things all kind of got pushed back and delayed. So of course changeovers were quick and rushed and not a lot of room, but no, it was fun. It was great to get back out into, I mean, we hadn't played a bar show in a few years. I mean, we do the Chris Rock New Year's Day levy here in Moncton every New Year's Day. That's, in a bar, but it's a daytime thing, right? So to be in a bar with, packed people and just a great vibe, and we all walked off stage, honestly, Andre, and we were like, that was one of the best shows we've ever played.
Those are usually the best.
Great.
Like small pub gigs are sometimes because the people are so close and you get that energy, you get that vibe off of the crowd. There's nothing like it, really. Because when you're playing on those bigger stages and you got the fence, the barricade that's like 20, 15 feet away, and like you're not getting that same interaction as you are when someone's like right in your face, yelling at you, or saying this is fucking awesome, and like you feel that, and then you play better because that energy comes through you, right? So there's that back and forth that you don't always get with the bigger shows. And that's, I mean, my background is being in a punk band, so that's like literally all we ever do. Like there's not many punk bands that are playing on a bigger stage. Like we're not going to be playing on the Hoodoo Tent in Harvest. That's for sure.
You never know.
The Harvest Punk Fest. Yeah, no.
But yeah, it's when you can share the energy when the people, that's what's happening, right? Like you said, and when you're in those smaller venues, it's much more palpable, and you can feel it. Both sides of the stage are feeling it. And the bigger stages, you get lost. You almost get lost from your bandmates. Some of those stages are so friggin' big.
Oh yeah, for sure. I remember that year I guess 2 summers I played with Terry Whalen. We played a small pub gig here in Miramichi as kind of a warm up. And then the next stage that I was on was the Dutch Mason Festival down in Truro. And that's one of those, big festival stages with the big screens on either side. And it's like, I'm looking over there and there's Jacques. And then way over there is, Terry Jr. And I'm like, where is everybody? You know, and it's just, you get lost. You don't get those visual cues, especially like as a rhythm section, like you got to lock in, and you need that back and forth, that communication that you're, either with your eyes or, body language. So those big stages, you can totally miss out on that, and then falls on the drummer usually,
Yep.
You miss a cue, you fuck up, everybody looks back at you,
Yep. Do
you find there's a lot of pressure as being the drummer in the Divorcees, because it is such the genre, there's a lot of minutia to it. Like there's a lot of, like, your shuffles have to have a certain feel. You're playing a lot of like ghost notes. Like there's a lot of intricacies to the playing. Like if you're having an off night, like what are some of the challenges that you find behind the kit? Like there's a lot of pressure there sometimes. Like how do you deal with that?
You just got to be in the moment. And it's so important to listen to everyone when you're playing, and to a degree, tune yourself out. Know what you need to be playing, right? I mean, it needs to be second nature to you. And when you've gotten to that level of playing where you just allow yourself to play and not think, that is when you really need to start listening to every single person around you. And I'm blessed to have a bass player with me that understands my style of playing, and I understand how he plays, and we can have that language so in tune with each other that if there's a slight little outage, Turtle's usually the first one to pick up on it, and he's always to my right. He likes to look down. His fretboard and see me, and that's part of the communication and having that visual connection with each other too, right? So I always see him out of my peripheral over here on my right, and as soon as I see that headstock kind of come back a little bit, I know he's looking over at me.
Something's up.
So I know there's something. So that's when I really kind of try to just make sure that I'm with him, because if I'm with him, then that foundation is solid. The other guys are going to find their way back. It's very rare though, Andre, that we get to a point where it's really falling apart, right? It's minute, probably to most, but for us as musicians, for us being the people doing the doing, we see it as a much bigger thing, right?
Yeah, no one else notices.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
So I really just tend to lean on Turtle when I'm feeling as though there's something that may be amiss. Alex is always really good too when it comes to tempos. If he feels the song started off a little laggy, he's got a little foot thing that he'll do, which I know to pick up on. And but we've been playing these songs for so long, and we have fun with them, and that's something we're trying to do a little bit more now as well. We're trying to be like, you know what, and I think COVID has kind of brought that out of us, where it's like we're not having the opportunity to play every other weekend, you know, or have our summer calendar booked with festivals where you want to get on stage, you're playing to a lot of people, you got to be tight, you got to be professional. But now we're like even when we did that cap show in Fredericton, that's what it was. Like Jason and Sean just started to let loose. They weren't playing their normal solos. We were extending things here and there and taking songs off into a little bit of a more jammy feel to things. And I think, that's probably where we were all like, that was one of our better shows.
Yeah, because you just, you let yourselves just express what you had, building up from being pent up for so long. As a drummer, I know how important the drum kit is. We're not OCD when it comes to setting up our kit, but it's got to be pretty much exactly where it is, because you're dealing with a game of like millimeters, really. Because anything that's slightly off, you're not going to necessarily hit the bell of your ride in that same way. Or, is there anything on your kit or, in your gear that you kind of can't live without? Like, what's the one thing that if someone were to take away, it would throw you off completely?
Oh, geez. What a question, Andre.
I know. I'm getting good at this.
Yeah. I mean, every aspect of a drum kit is important. My kit's created based on what I feel it needs for the music that I'm playing, right? So I have this Mapex Armory kit here. It's a 6-piece. It's set up, 1 up and 2 down, but I got a 12-inch as well back there. So sometimes, but every now and then, I'll throw the extra tom up, but then I feel like it's a little out of place, right? So I got to take it off again. Funny enough, probably the kick drum, I guess. If someone was to take away the kick drum, I probably would feel as though something is missing. I feel like I could probably get away still being able to do things if I had a kick drum and no snare or no hi-hat or no tom or no ride or no crash, right? But without a kick drum, I think I'd probably be feeling a little lost.
Right. Well, I mean, like then you look at guys like Willie Nelson's drummer, who's literally just sitting there with a snare drum. Snare drum and brushes. That's it.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's not what you guys are playing either, right? So so what do you do? Like, I know you did a bit of engineering on the last album. How much engineering were you a part of? Like, how many tracks, or was it just sort of a collaborative with the producer engineer that you were working with?
The idea was not for me to be engineering going into it, but we had done the pre-pro here and at Alex's place, and then I had done the mixing and stuff here at my little studio area. So I knew my way around the software. Not an expert by any means. Again, it's all just personal fun stuff for the band. So it just worked out where, we were pulling long hours. I was done after day 1.5, right? So I just felt, Dwayne, if you need a break, let me step in. And then it just kind of became a little bit more of it wasn't a 50-50 split by any means, but I was behind the board a lot.
Yeah.
Quite a bit. Yeah.
So doing like a lot of guitar or vocal work?
Everything. Yeah.
Everything?
Guitar takes, vocal takes, rhythm takes, bass takes. Yeah.
Okay.
So we would just kind of trade off. Dwayne still carried the load. I was just there to, push the buttons and help out with levels and all that fun stuff. So
is that something that you would kind of want to keep dabbling into and like work with other other acts, like other bands and stuff, and kind of produce or engineer for them?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm slowly setting myself up here. Again, behind you, I got my my computer and my reference monitors, and I got my MIDI keyboard.
Okay.
I got a couple of decent mics, kind of ready to go.
Starting out small. So
yeah.
Do you have anybody like lined up that you want to work with that's kind of booking your time at all, or?
No, I haven't really spoken to anybody about it. I mean, I have friends and former coworkers who are musicians that I've always said, hey, if you ever want to do something, I'm slowly getting myself, set up to do it. And I'm there now. Like I have the equipment. Again, like I said, we did the bass and the drum pre-production here for Drop of Blood. And I'm dabbling in it as well with like even after we mixed the album here too, down here in the center of my studio. So, I'm just starting to get to know it a lot more, and it's fun. I just like the creative aspect of it.
Yeah.
So I would love to do more work. Like I'm constantly telling Turtle, dude, we just have to just get together and do whatever. Like we can do it remotely now too, right? Alex has got his studio set up, and really anybody, rhythm guitar or vocals, all you need is a decent little interface, and everyone has a computer or laptop these days.
So you work with Turtle, because you also, I don't know if it's a permanent position or, a permanent project that you have going on the side. But you've been playing the Carrie Beck band. Is that just like a kind of a cover weekend thing, or is that something where you guys are going to be creating originals and releasing anything down the road?
There could be. It all depends on if Carrie wants to. I think Carrie's doing a little bit of writing these days. That is more of a weekend, the odd gig here and there. We were doing some bar nights back in probably 4 or 5 years ago, where we were playing some of the local bars here in Moncton and doing some wedding gigs here and there. Carrie Beck, Carrie was actually some of my first bar gigs when I was 16, 17 years old were with Carrie Beck.
Okay.
So he's another guy that's been in my life for all these years, and we've constantly been over the years working together. There'll be 4 or 5 years gaps in between projects, and then he'll give me a call and he'll be like, hey, are you busy? And then we'll get together. I mean, he's just a legendary guy. He's by far one of my favorite musicians, especially local musician in the Moncton area. Heart of gold. I just love him to death. And I love it when I get the message or the call, hey, are you available? It's like, yes, I get to play with Carrie. And then, Turtle started doing, I think, some duos with him over the years. And then it all just kind of made sense that we would just kind of do this Carrie Beck trio thing. And it's kind of become a thing. Carrie's got some older originals that we'll do, but it's mostly just covers. It's just fun times.
Yeah, I met Carrie. He did a set, just a solo acoustic thing at O'Donoghue's. It was a pretty good crowd, and man, he's got a way on the mic, like just riffing back and forth with people in the audience. Like he could almost do stand up. Like like he's quick-witted that way. Like yeah. I think he roasted me for something. I can't remember what it was, but anyway.
Sounds like Carrie.
It was a fun night. Yeah.
Great guy. Yeah. Love him to death.
Yeah. I think actually I don't get to O'Donoghue's as much. But I think one of the last times that I was there, you guys were playing, I think it was like in the wintertime a couple of years ago. I can't remember who the opening band was. But that small pub. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's not a very big pub, but man, does it sound good in there.
Yeah, it's a great room. Absolutely. Tight little stage, of course, but Yeah, we did a series of dates with East Coast Love Story that winter. We did a few dates in PEI, a few around Nova Scotia, and then 3 or 4 up here in New Brunswick as well. So that was fun. That was a good time with those kids.
Yeah.
It's a shame that they're not still doing their stuff, because I really like those guys, and fun guys to be around. Great tunes, great songwriters.
Mhm.
Ryan Hillier, we worked on his album a couple of years back as well. His last album, we had the Divorcees come in and help him out on a solo record. And
okay, so you guys were the band for his album?
Yeah,
kind of like Pearl Jam was for I can't remember his name now. Who's it? Oh, Neil Young. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, Neil Young. Yeah, no, it was just shortly. I think East Coast Love Story was pretty much at term at that point, and he had asked us. He said, "I've got all these songs that I want to record. Would you guys be willing to help me out on it?" And we absolutely jumped at the opportunity. He hired Chris Colpaw to produce it, and we went over to Chris's studio and banged that album out there. And I tell you, it's one of my favorite albums. I listen to it often, and I don't tend to listen to my music a lot. Like I do when you're
working on it, and yeah, and like the month or so after you release it, just to hear it, or if you haven't played in a while, like we have, you kind of listen to it to relearn your own songs.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then you just get tired of it, because then you're playing it all the time, right? So, but that album is superb. It's unfortunate that it didn't get any kind of recognition this year for Music NB or anything of the sorts. But if you haven't heard it, Ryan Hillier, gosh, I have to edit this. What's the?
It's
can't
on
think of the
Spotify.
name.
It's on Spotify.
But it's on Spotify.
Yeah, it's on all that.
Yeah, it's on Apple Music, Spotify.
So going back, I know this is kind of going way back to probably the start of the conversation. So when you were learning how to play drums, in your teens, what did you just kind of learn on your own with the pillows, and then eventually graduate to a drum kit? Or did you get into any bands, like once you did get that drum kit? Like, what was your first band or first stage experience?
So yeah, once I got the kit, I got it for Christmas. I was in, I think, grade 9. Yeah, so I was going into high school the next year. When I got to high school, some guys that were a couple of years older than me that went to my junior high and knew that I played drums were putting on a high school musical. They were doing Pink Floyd's The Wall. So they were going to have a full band. Sorry, here.
Yeah.
Actors. It was going to be the whole 9 yards. Sorry, I don't know why that's in.
That's all good.
Yeah. So Mark, the guy that was spearheading the project, caught me in the hallway, and he was like, "Hey, Kev, do you still have your drums?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Hey, do you want to help us out for this musical? We're doing a full production of Pink Floyd's The Wall, front to back." Sure, I'll do it. So
Okay.
First time I had ever played with anybody, I was just always in my basement playing along to my sister had a KB100 PV KB100 keyboard amp. So I would like hook up
Just
my CD player to that and crank it and just play to that in the basement. So first experience was learning Pink Floyd's The Wall front to back, and then walking out on stage for the first time to 2 sold out shows at Moncton High Auditorium. So that was my first.
That kind of sets the stage, gives the bug to be playing, on stage in front of people.
Yeah, it was an absolute ride. And then they graduated high school that year. I was still in grade 10, and then we put together a Pink Floyd cover band. And then that's when we started getting booked at bars, and I was underage, and but was able to get in and play the shows, and
a little easier back then.
Yeah, absolutely. And then just doing like jam nights downtown was always fun. We'd go down there and go down to like Fat Tuesdays, and Stephen LeBlanc, Robin Henry, and Danny Bourgeois.
Oh yeah, those are some players.
fabulous players.
Yeah.
And then, just getting up on stage and playing some Pink Floyd songs, and then, meeting other musicians. And then that's where I met Kerry. And then Kerry asked me if I would start doing some work with him. And yeah, and then that band that I was in, they moved to Ottawa. Mark moved to Ottawa for university. And then the year I was graduating, he said, "Hey, I put together a band down here. We need a drummer. Will you come down?" So 2 days after I graduated high school, I packed up my drum kit and a bag of clothes and moved to Ottawa.
just pack it all into like a car, or just.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Mark's girlfriend at the time was moving down as well. So we rented a U-Haul.
Oh, okay.
And we packed it up with our stuff. Mark and Andrea drove it down. I took a flight to Ottawa, and then met them there. And then we moved into the house. There was a couple of people that Mark had met at university that were living with us too. Great people, Jason Pereira. Still all people I stay in touch with, but that experience lasted about a year. That kind of fell apart. I was like, I'm going to go to Toronto. I'm 20 years old and I'm going to be a session musician, obviously.
Well, yeah.
That lasted about 3 months. And then I found my way back out to Moncton. And when I got back out to Moncton, that's when I got a call from Danny Roy, who founded, Thunderfunk. And he'd heard I was back in town. I had known him since I was about 11 or 12 years old. We played minor hockey together. And he's like, "I'm playing guitar. Do you want to start this funk kind of chili pepperish style band?" I'm in. So we did that, recorded a couple of albums and did a couple of Eastern Canada tours, and that was fun times.
Wow. So then from that band, that's when you went into the Divorcees, or was there a gap between that?
Yeah, there was a gap. So in 99 is basically when Thunderfunk finished. And we had just recorded an album. It was never really officially released. But I had another daughter, another child at that time. So I was in my early 20s and I needed to be a dad. So I'd moved back to Ottawa, ironically. My family was there, living there now. So moved to Ottawa for a little bit. Again, only lasted about a year and a bit there, maybe a year and a half. And then I moved back and I was a single dad with basically a 1.5-year-old, 2-year-old daughter. And I just had to put music on the back burner. She was my everything. And I just put everything into taking care of her. So I, got a job, got a steady job, and raised her. And when she was about 10 years old, and I had met, who's now my wife, actually, Bridget and I had met when Harmony was, I think, 5 or 6 years old. But Harmony was getting older, steady relationship with Bridget. I had more of an opportunity to kind of get back into the music scene and started doing some more work with Carrie Beck. There's another local guy that I went to high school with too, did a little bit of work with him. And then Danny Roy from Thunderfunk was doing this cover gig with Turtle and Jaybird from the Divorcees. And he said, "Hey, do you want to come play drums?" So then that's when I met Turtle. And that would have been in 2004, 2005, I think. Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah, in and around there. And then, we did the cover thing for quite a while. And then the Divorcees thing happened, like I said, in 2013-ish, and
just been riding that ever since.
Yeah.
It's kind of I've noticed that with a few more, actually it's more drummers. I guess we're the guys that land the chicks and have kids, like, because I did the same thing. Like I was playing music in my teens, and then went off to college and met my wife, and then started a family, and then I hadn't touched a drum kit in probably the better part of 10, 12 years, maybe. I can't even remember how many years, but it at least a decade before then coming back to it, and then being in the band that I'm in now, or a band that became the band that I'm in now. Like, and there's a few guys that it's kind of the same story. They either, not necessarily that they settle down, but they kind of take a break from it before then coming back. And like, I think that's part of with my musical journey that, you know, I'm always picking apart what I'm doing behind the kit, because I'm like, man, that time, that gap of time, like, you know, there's all this stuff that I could have learned how to do that, you know, now I'm just faking it until I make it. Right. Like, do you ever feel that way?
Oh, I feel like that every day, Andre. I'm faking it every single day. Trust
Yeah.
me, in all aspects of my life.
Yeah.
I'm a
You know,
nervous wreck inside.
as long as I can count to four and I hit, you know, the crash when I'm supposed to, it's all fine.
Yeah, it's crazy. We are by far our own worst critic, and it's a hard thing to shake. You know, to really give yourself the credit that you deserve. You know, I mean, you have people tell you, "Oh man, you're awesome, you're great," and it's like, yeah, sure,
Yeah.
appreciate
But
that.
yeah, I see that. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily an unhealthy approach to it either, because you're always striving to improve and be better, which
Right.
then, you know, when you're with a bunch of, you know, musicians, like, you know, you with the Divorcees and me with the guys in Six Gun, you know, we're always, oh man, we don't got to get better at this. Like, we're each thinking we've got to get better at our own craft. But then when we're in a room together and we're creating something, you know, that's, you know, when I don't want to say magic happens, but you know, that's when, you know, the three or the, in your case, was it five guys in the Divorcee? Like, when you're in that unit and you're all speaking the same language and you're as prepared as you can be and you're serving each other, that's when you can create, and that's when you can push each other. And, you know, like, you hear something, you know, in your case, the Turtle's doing, or I'm hearing something that Sean's doing, and you kind of get that cue, and then it makes you play something different, or you create something, and then you fall into something else. And then all of a sudden there's a song out of it, or there's a really cool part that you add to, you know, a song that you've been working on. And, you know, that's the behind the scenes stuff that a lot of people don't see, because they're not in the room making the music. They see the end product either on stage or, you know, on an album or streaming or whatever now. um, but that's something that I think we all as musicians have to push each other and encourage each other to not look at, you know, with the magnifying glass at, you know, oh, you could have done that better. It's no, like, you're doing exactly what you should be doing for the song. And who cares if you're not, you know, playing it super technical? You're
Yeah,
serving the music and you're serving the people by doing that,
yeah,
you
well
know.
said, very well said. Yeah,
So, and that's, you know, as a rhythm player, that's kind of the job, right? You,
yeah,
like you said at the beginning of the podcast, you know, you're getting your cue from the other guy in the rhythm section. And if you're having an off night, or if you're not picking up slack, and then you kind of get that cue, and then it makes you kind of snap out of it, either you're an autopilot or whatever, you know, you build each other, you bring each other up, right?
yeah,
That's the dynamic of a band, a good band.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's the magic. That's what it's what you just described, right? It's being able to speak to each other or pick up on something that someone's doing, or, you know, when you have those spontaneous moments where you do something, you go for a fill, they go for a run, and everything is just right where it needs to be.
Yeah.
That kind of shit, just, I love it. That's what I live for. Like, it's even when you're playing, you know, the same song, you've played it 300 times,
Doesn't
but
matter.
that 301st time something little different happens, and it's like, awesome, very cool.
Yeah. And it reminds you why you're doing it in the first place.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
That's awesome. So do you guys, with COVID, you know, like you said, you can work digitally, remotely, and you've got your setup. You guys are already working on some new material for down the road when all this fog lifts?
Yeah, there's a little bit of writing happening behind the scenes right now. It's all very preliminary. Typically, you know, the songs start with Alex, or now with Jason, now that he's back in the band. Right, they're the main, you know, the lyricists. They kind of know what they're writing, and then they kind of bring a very basic outline of the song, and then we'll start to work on it together. And you know, Turtle's great with arrangements. He's great with finding little turns that, just add a little something extra to a song instead of just kind of keeping things very simple. So then, we just kind of build it up from there. We try to find the right kind of BPM, and then what kind of feel are we looking for? A lot of the time, especially with Alex, Jason's a little bit more do whatever you think works kind of a thing. But Alex usually comes in with, I'm looking for a wailing 4 on the floor for this, or I'm looking for, and then sometimes we'll try it that way. And then for shits and giggles, we'll start the song again, and I'll play a completely different beat for a joke, just to
see.
And then sometimes that works, and then sometimes like, holy, okay, well maybe it doesn't have to be a 4 on the floor,
or it's a different song.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say it's a very collaborative process when it comes to writing the songs themselves. And Alex has said that he's got a little bit of a concept going right now with I don't want to say a character, but he's got kind of a persona in mind, and he's writing kind of in the vein of that. So hasn't released anything over to us yet. He's just shared kind of the concept and the idea. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's cool.
And now that we are able to work truly remotely, I think that's probably the approach we're going to take for the next little bit until things start to ease up and get outside of our household bubbles, and
at least for pre-production, and then get into a studio to record it.
You know what, we've been talking about this back and forth, and we almost feel that we're equipped to be able to do it on our own.
And DIY.
We don't need a studio to go to. Totally DIY. We talked, obviously, we had a great time working with Dwayne Kelly on this album. Love to, have him back in and work with us as well if he's up for it. But with Drop of Blood, it was a first for all of us, where it's like, this is us. We are doing everything. We're engineering it, we're producing it, we're mixing it. This is us, full stop, right? And I think we did a good job on this album. So I think we all feel that we've learned from it, and we can probably do better on the next album. So we've proven to ourselves that we can do it.
This is the first album with Jason back. When you joined the band, was he in the band, or is like him coming back just like a new experience for you?
Yeah, a brand new experience for me. He was gone for a total of 12 years out of the 16 years of the band. So he had left after the first album. I don't know the exact timeline, but it was shortly after the first album, because the second album, he's not even on it at all. The second and third album, he's not there. So, but I had done work with Jason Haywood back in the 90s as well.
Everything just comes back full circle.
Yeah, it's crazy. So it's the Moncton music scene. What can I tell you?
It's similar to Miramichi. It's very incestuous. Like, it's you're in a band with this person and that person, and then you're in another one with the other people, and they were in a band together, and but I mean, that's great, because it's the community of musicians, and it's all about friendships. It's all about those connections, and when you connect with people, then it makes the music better.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So we can look forward to some new stuff in the next couple of years then.
Oh, I would say so. I'm itching to get back at it, to be honest with you. I was chatting with Dwayne back in August, actually, and he even said, man, it was a year ago this week that we were in the studio, and he's like, I kind of wish we were back there doing it. And I fully agree. There's so much time being spent at home. I love my wife. I love my kids are all gone. My oldest is, in Fredericton. She graduated from UNB, and Harmony's again back in Toronto now. And we have our 2 dogs. So there's a lot of time, and I want to be creative. I want to work on stuff. Right. Yeah. So I keep pushing Jason and Alex to keep writing and send stuff over, so we can at least start working on some stuff and get some things going. So I would expect some new material, and even the concept of releasing albums these days is almost a question mark, right?
Yep.
It's people are just doing the single thing. It's you can do a song, release it, do another song, release it. So not sure what the future holds, but I'm sure you're going to hear more from the Divorcees camp soon enough.
Awesome. Well, that's great. I can't wait to hear it. And I appreciate and thank you so much for doing this with me. And I hope people enjoy it and check out all your stuff. I'll have links to, the albums and the videos and stuff. And I just, I think you guys are fantastic. And I love your style. I love your groove. I think it just builds just so much emotion in the songs. And I mean, coming from a drummer to a drummer, I think you're just one of the best in the province.
Well, I greatly appreciate that, Andre. I'm quite taken aback by that. So thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity. Thanks so much for asking me. This is a first for me. I don't think I've ever done a podcast before. So
There you go.
actually, no, that's not true.
Oh,
That's not true. Sorry. And if the right person who knows who I did a podcast or who we did a podcast with hears this, he may Chris Glidden. Chris, I love you, Chris. But yes, we did a podcast with him a couple of years ago. So
awesome.
but
Okay.
yeah, completely honored for the ask, Andre. It was great to catch up with you again and to see you. And I hope you're well, and I hope your family's well. And I hope we get to see each other at a music venue together playing.
Yeah. I'd love to see you guys at O'Donoghue's again, because that room sounds fantastic. And it's the type of venue that I like to see bands, which is in person.
Right. Awesome.
Well, very best, man. Thank you so much.
Likewise. All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
See ya. That was an awesome conversation. Thanks so much, Kevin, for being on the podcast. I really do appreciate it. Welcome to the Los Cabos artist family. Since it was just announced that you're now part of the roster, couldn't be happier for you. Los Cabos Drumsticks have artists from all over the world. They are the #1 drumstick manufactured in Canada. They are an awesome product. Anyone that wants to check them out, you can get them at Long & McQuaid. They have a huge selection of the sticks available. And if you're interested in them, you can always shoot me a message. I can answer any questions. Might even be able to get you a pair. So as usual, next podcast will be in 2 weeks. I am super excited for the next episode, and I hope you all come along and join me as we get to know more and more artists from across the Atlantic provinces in our region. We have a lot of talent, and I couldn't be happier to be a part of that. So until next time, peace, love, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Kindness goes a long way. Thanks.